Everybody, welcome to Astrology Unplugged. Nice to have you. And tonight's guest, we'll get to in just a minute, is our wonderful friend, Cathy Pagano. And I wanted to let you know before I bring her on of our other guests coming. I have a lot of guests coming to you every couple of weeks. The next one will be our shaman, our Pittsburgh shaman, who's wonderful. Deneen Joyner will be with us on May 19th. So it's good to have Cathy with you. Cathy has a phenomenal bio, which I want to read to you. And then we'll go from there because it's really intriguing. And this just goes to show that tonight we could be talking about just about anything. She is a Jungian psychotherapist. She is an archetypal astrologer like I am. She is a soul coach and a writer. She's the author of a book on the goddess, Wisdom's Daughter, How Women Can Change the World. She teaches wise women salons on using this goddess energy to create a deep connection to soul, opening up our ability to access the wisdom that we need to change our lives and the world. Using the gifts of feminine consciousness, Cathy works with astrology, tarot, symbolic language, dreams, journeying to liberate our feminine gifts from patriarchy's shackle. Her website is wisdomofastrology.com with dashes in between. So, it's nice to have you. Welcome aboard. Let me make sure I got you're unmuted. Welcome, Cathy.
Hi. Can I just say something? Wisdom of Astrology is not my website anymore. It hasn't been for about 3 years.
Oh, okay.
They forgot to tell me to renew it, and somebody stole it.
Okay.
And then he stole all my content. And I think I think it's like a shady thing. So please don't go there and get caught. Okay, because he's got a picture that looks like John Edwards, but he has a whole other name underneath it. And so it just feels like he was kind of shady.
Okay, so your real website is what?
CathyPagano.com.
Okay, that's yours. Well, welcome aboard. You are on Star Self and you're on Astrology Unplugged, first time in 5 years. Nice to have you back.
Thank you.
Coming to us from Wickford, Rhode Island. Nice to have you. How are things up there?
Well, they're starting to get, the flowers are coming out. It's starting to be beautiful. I live right off the bay. I walk around every day thinking, why am I this blessed when the rest of the world is in so much pain? But I'm hoping that for whatever reason, this is where I am, but it's really beautiful. It's spring. What can I say? It's almost belting.
It's very nice to have you. And the fact that you're really good with dreams is a plus too. And the main thing is that we both can share the astrological dialogue. Anyhow, the main reason I was interested in having you again, many different subjects, but I wanted you to talk tonight at some point about the continued rise or rebirth of the divine feminine and how we know how it's happening with the planets and people are feeling it around. So let's start with the collective. I know this crazy things going on in Ukraine, but what are you sensing in the American collective now that we're under a Pluto return?
Well, what I'm sensing is total disorganization. And it's interesting, there's a book called The Gene Code.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, and somebody wrote, I had it and I put it someplace else. So anyway, and it's astrology and the I Ching. And for the yin, for the second trigram, which is the receptive, he gives like a shadow and a gift and then a blessing. And the shadow of the feminine is dislocation. It's so interesting because basically it's saying we forget we're not home. The whole issue of that is we need to remember that we are home, that we have this unity. And so the shadow is where we're living right now because we have been ripped away from our home on Mother Earth by this society we live in, right? It's the left brain. It's, patriarchal. All the religions of the book have dissed the goddess, have gotten rid of the divine feminine. And in the I Ching, of course, the yin is always here. The receptive energy of the feminine is always here. But, as human beings, when we are in a time of chaos, because with Pluto, going over, when us having our Pluto return, the whole world is in disarray. I found it was interesting that 2 days after the America's Pluto return, Putin invaded the Ukraine, right?
That's right.
Look at democracy. The thing that we gave birth to, the idea of democracy and fighting for our freedom, went out into the world. That's what the Ukrainians are doing. We're not doing it as much here in America, but look at them. I mean, the ideal of America is out there. So that's what I found fascinating, right?
Yeah, that is fascinating.
Okay, we here at home are being deluded. Okay, and I think that it's this the divine feminine. When we repress it, we get dislocated. We don't know where we belong. Yeah. And so many people are leaving their religions, the religions of the book, and they're going to astrology. But I was thinking about talking, and I thought, well, why the goddess? My ex-husband's an Episcopal priest, and one of my sons one day told me, I was saying, let's go to Christmas Eve Mass. And he goes, Mom, the goddess isn't in a building. And I went, okay, you're right, Greg, I gotcha. So we don't, it's sort of like, where are our gods? And as human beings, I think we need a bigger presence to come up against a mystery, right? And that's what the feminine is. It's a mystery. Now, the interesting thing is, because she has been here all along, but with patriarchy, especially the religions of the book, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, pretty much they sent the goddess into exile, right? She went underground. So the only place you could find her was like in secret societies, and the alchemists, when they wrote about Lady Wisdom, the devotion to Mary Magdalene, and then the medieval courts of love, where she became like the sacred mystery of the Grail legends, right? It's the divine feminine. That's what we're looking for. And that's why I think it's good to talk about a goddess in some ways.
Why is it? Where is the parallel? I'm not going to bring up Eris at the moment. Where is the parallel with the United States phenomenal Pluto return with the divine wisdom of the feminine? How do they match up?
Well, I was thinking about that. Wisdom is always feminine. Okay, if you look back, except for Thoth,
certainly not feminine.
Except for Thoth, okay, in Egypt. But then again, Geb was the earth, so they had a very different view of the world. Okay, the goddess was in the heavens, and the earth was masculine, whereas we see the masculine out there, and the earth is feminine. So it was a different consciousness. I'm not quite sure that it was only with Pluto, because I think the goddess came back, ta-da, you can put the picture up of the Earth rise. When we saw Earth rising in 1969, there's a lot of older people here. I remember seeing it. And I think that was the moment that we all of a sudden realized, look, we are one world, we're one being, we're one people, it's like, wow, how did we get here, right?
That's true.
And I think, and that was when all the books about the return of the goddess started coming out. Not that we didn't have it before. The occultists in in England, Dion Fortune and Aleister Crowley and all those guys, they talked about the goddess.
What year are you speaking of?
Which one? This was 69.
What?
1969.
Okay, because Chiron was 77.
Yeah.
Okay, so this.
Yeah, so you can take that down.
Earth view is 69. That's correct.
Yeah. And the reason I look at that picture is because I've sort of stolen the Christians' thunder, if you will. Okay, for first of all, as much as we pick on them, the Catholic Church is the only religion of the book that kept the goddess. Okay. Mary and all the saints. They took all the pagan goddesses and they made them saints. I remember everybody like, St. Christopher wasn't real. Everybody had the St. Christopher medals, and they found out, no, he wasn't. He was like a myth, which was great. That was good about the Catholic Church, because saints and images are part of the divine feminine, which we'll get to in a minute. So they have, and even now the Catholic Church calls this the Marian age, the age of Mary, because since the 1800s, she keeps appearing all over the place.
Are you talking about the mother or Magdalene?
No, the mother. Magdalene comes in more with the Nag Hammadi, but Mary, the mother, that's who everybody prayed to. Nobody prayed to Yahweh in the Middle Ages. They didn't even pray to Jesus much. She was the mediator. She's the mother, the divine mother. So in a way, she's been here, but we haven't valued her. And then, of course, as Western society became more capitalistic and more modern, we've really ignored it. And the masculine patriarchy that we live in trained women, and now we are separated from our own goddess nature. We're father's daughters. We're like Athena, who jumped out of Zeus's head. Do you know what I mean? How many women are disconnected from their bodies? Not that we are now, but back in the 70s, totally.
Oh, it's getting better and better.
Oh, yeah. But if we start in around the 60s and 70s, that's when women started to reclaim our bodies. And look, we're still fighting, right?
What was that famous book? Our bodies ourselves. Our bodies ourselves. Yeah, that was a huge hit for the feminine race.
Yeah. Well, you see, because the thing is,
gender.
We have magic in our bodies. And and the patriarchy, the religions have feared it because it's magic. And it's interesting.
Very threatening, huh?
It's interesting because if the feminine is the foundation, which we'll see, the feminine is the foundation, and it's sort of like the quantum field, right? Because the quantum field is Earth at its finest distillation, right? It's materiality at the finest distillation. So the feminine is the foundation of everything. And all these patriarchal religions hid her away behind the devil. And right?
Sure.
So we have an imbalance, right? So the feminine and the masculine are now beginning to rebalance. That's the big thing that's happening now. So that's the return of the feminine, we could say, right?
That's a wonderful thing, yes.
And all the women I know, as soon as we go, oh, we're free, because that's basically what we're all figuring out, how we women are free.
Plus the typical male is becoming much more balanced, female and male.
Yeah, because of us saying we need to be free,
Exactly.
As Jung said, the anima is life. Okay, the divine feminine is life. Like the Aries fire is that spark of creation, and then Taurus, the goddess, takes that fire and manifests, right? It manifests the garden, right? So anyway, any questions before I go on?
Well, I'm interested in your opinion in the book that we wrote. I was heavily glued to assigning Venus, not to Taurus, but to the Earth. I don't know how it fits. But there's no doubt in my mind that Venus rules Libra, that Venus rules Taurus in some capacity, and it also rules the Earth. And there's no doubt about it, but I don't know how you put that on a chart. No, I'm real interested in what you're saying. Now, I want to ask you about the time you were on the first time, about 2017, about when we started this show. We were doing our initial shows on the rise of the divine feminine. What has happened since then?
Well, I think that it's happening on multi-layers. I think that more and more women are doing earth rituals, okay, which is basically it's our religion, to love the earth, right? Not that men don't do it too, but it was something we weren't allowed. I love my last name. Pagano is from pagan, and a pagan is just a person from the country. We were the last ones to buckle under.
That's a wonderful story. I didn't realize that. Yeah, you're a pagan.
Yeah. So, what a great name. It's one of the oldest names. So I just lost my thread of thought. Okay. So anyway.
Take your time. There's no hurry.
Yep. So anyway, yes, I think, first of all, I think Venus and the Earth is the same in a way, okay? Because in my book, after I talk about the woman clothed with the sun, who is Lady Wisdom, I correlate her with Venus, with Aphrodite. So, in that sense, I see the both. Back in 1969, when we saw the men on the moon, hopefully everybody here believes that we went there, and they took that beautiful picture, right? I was starting to say I sort of took something from the book of Revelations, from the Christian's end time story. And it's interesting because in that book, they talk about all the bad things that people do. And you have to look at these crazy Christians right now and think, oh my goddess, they're doing it. They're the ones. That's who they were talking about. And they've created a society where death and famine and the four horsemen of the apocalypse, whatever you want to call them, is really prevalent. We're a death culture. We've become a death culture. That's the Pluto thing you were talking about. But in this book, all of a sudden, the whole story changes because out of the blue, they say an portent appeared in the heavens, a woman clothed with the sun, standing on the moon, crowned with stars, in labor, giving birth to the Savior. And to me, that's what we saw when we saw Earthrise. It was standing on the moon, all the stars were around it, and we are giving birth to a different consciousness since then, haven't we?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt. I want to get to John. John has a question for you. John, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can ask your question to Cathy if you like.
No, I just put it in the chat that Catholics call the Roman Catholic Church Holy Mother Church. I think that's very interesting. That was my comment.
Yeah. Well, the soul is feminine. Well, it is the mother church. They have a tradition of the feminine. It's just hidden. So do the Jews and so do the Muslims, but it's not opened and it's not valued in the same way. Okay. So anyway, so the goddess is back. Okay. And I see women, honoring Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of Egypt. I did when I lived in the desert. Sedna, Eris, the warrior goddess of heart, all of the different goddesses, which I find interesting because in Hinduism, they talk about Maya, the 1,000 faces of illusion. And you see, that's the trouble often with masculine religions. They say the earth is an illusion. It's better up in heaven.
Yeah, you hear it all the time, everywhere.
Right?
Yeah.
But it isn't an illusion. All those 10,000 forms are full of spirit. I think Mother Earth is trying to say, I am so alive. Why aren't you listening?
Well, there's a lot of really good things happening. You could tell, and I think a lot of men are running scared because the women are evolving so quickly. One thing I want to mention to people, in case you forgot this or didn't know this, I think it's very important to point out that the 60s took place from 61 through 71, largely. And the center of it, the specific core center of that event was Uranus and Pluto coming together in Virgo, around 19 Virgo, on October 8th of 1965. That was the real center of the 60s. And what's interesting, as you know, Cathy, each degree of the zodiac has its own meaning, the,
Yes.
the Sabian symbols. And the 19th degree of Virgo, which is where that occurred in 65, has a meaning for itself. And when that meaning was translated in addition by the great astrologer Dane Rudhyar, he said the real meaning and the real challenge of the 60s was for us to start to learn to follow our intuition.
Yep. And that's the other thing. Okay. So that's the other side of the feminine. We have the outer form of the feminine. They used to call it in Egypt, or at least the occultists did, Isis unveiled, God, the goddess that we see. But then the goddess that is veiled, or like the high priestess, is how the feminine operates within us, right? And it operates within all of us. And it comes through our heart. It comes through our intuition. It comes through our instincts. And it's the right brain feminine consciousness that hooks us into the creative imagination. And that's part of the feminine. One of the worst things that has happened to us is that our media has colonized our imagination.
How do you see that?
Well, there's so many things coming at us that we see. Okay, on one level, there's a doctor who wrote a book, a brain surgeon, called The Alphabet and the Goddess, who said that now that we're seeing more images, people are becoming more right brain. And he actually said that as societies learn to write, they become more patriarchal and hierarchical because of how we break up words, right? The feminine speaks in images and in stories and in symbols. So for so long, we said that's crazy, right? And and women are good at that. Back in the early 1900s, women were put in crazy houses and
yeah, that's for sure.
Freudian said, "Oh, they're hysterical. Their wombs are moving through them. They're hysterical."
Hysteria only applied to women, not men.
Right.
So what do you see with your great schools of thought here when you look at an America which essentially has no leader? What do you see, and how do we come upon one?
Well, I think we do it by coming in and finding our own inner leader. Not everybody is a leader in terms of politics, but women have great gifts that we have to explore. That's the other side of our society. We give young women patches so they don't have their period. We have a lot of trouble figuring out what gender people are, just as we are set to explore the feminine body. It's very interesting that at this moment, people are going, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. Well, it does. We have different chemistry. We have different bodies. And the mysteries and the powers of a feminine body have been degraded and practically destroyed. And now we have to discover them again. So I see, after all of this rockaroo in our society, which will take, how long do you think, Rick? Another decade or so before it happens? Maybe the early 2040s?
I say 20 years.
Yeah. The early 2040s is when things are going to start to maybe smooth out, because we're in a big transition. So to go back to the goddess image, to me, the goddess comes in all these forms, but the one that we see in this image, the woman clothed with the sun, is wisdom, because all gods and goddesses have their attributes. So you read the symbol, and this is why I talk about symbolic language. To stand on the moon means to go with the rhythms of life, to listen to the imagination. Once we clear up our petty unconscious, personal unconscious, the moon opens us to the imagination. We can listen to Mother Earth. And then we're clothed with the sun. We have to use our masculine consciousness.
Why is it then, I must say, as a experienced astrologer, why is it that if there's one planet that can raise hell on a person's chart, it is the moon? Why is it? It's just so obvious. Somebody with an out of whack moon can just dominate an entire family.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I think of the moon as our motivation. Okay, right? I mean, it's what we know. It's what we need to be nurtured, right? So it's our unconscious motivation.
It's so insistent.
But that's because
Absolutely insistent.
but we aren't. That's why we have to become conscious. The moon says reflect on things. The moon is the great reflector, and because we disregard the feminine, we don't reflect on things.
Eliza just handed me a note. Are you ready for this note?
Sure.
It says in the early days of the feminist movement, Gloria Steinem said, quote, if men had periods, then periods would be a sacrament.
Yes.
I'm not touching that one, but maybe you want to.
Well, the thing is that, Albert Einstein, there have been so many creative men, but Albert Einstein, I wish I could find the quote, besides him saying imagination is more important than knowledge. Right. He also said that we have made our thinking, which is the servant, into the master.
Right.
And it's our intuitive body that's a gift.
Right.
That's the goddess's gift. So once again, how do we bring it back into balance? We need to stand on the moon, listen to our intuition, and then check it out and name it with our solar consciousness. And then also have a spiritual sense. So it's asking us to be grown-ups. Do you know what I mean? The goddess is here and she's saying, grow up, kids. You've been kids long enough.
That's what he's demanding in the USA.
Right?
So what do you got to say? I see tremendous impact from the new heiress.
Yeah, I think that.
What kind of goddess is she?
Well, once again, I think that we covered over a lot of goddesses from what they might call matriarchy. I don't know if we're going to call it that. But once again, we call her the goddess of discord. We pick it up from the Greeks. So that's how the Greeks saw her. But discord means going against the heart, like the Furies, okay? They chased after you if you hurt your mom or the earth, okay?
Really?
But it was Pallas Athena who switched them. So the father's daughter, the clever strategic wisdom, not the innate wisdom, but the strategic cultural wisdom is what changed things. So I think if we go back to who she originally was, she was like the protector and defender of the feminine.
Who Eris was?
I think so.
Can you are you shocked like I am at how few astrologers are following her now, even when there's so much evidence?
I really don't pay attention to that many people. I don't know. The internet, right before COVID, I was going to get off the internet. And so I'm on it reluctantly, and I know that I don't pay as much attention as I should.
Just very few people following her, very few people giving her power in the natal chart, transiting power, and very few people see how powerful this square is right now, last several years, with Eris versus Pluto.
Yeah.
That's why it's been so nuts. It's not just the Pluto return. It's the Eris square to Pluto. And then look at Eris's discovery. Look at how the Earth changed 2005, 2006. John raised his hand again.
The Judeo-Christians think of God as Father. I have a problem with that. Isn't God also Mother?
Well, the mystics said that, but not the church.
Well, what about you?
Oh, well, God is source, so it's mother and father, it's both.
Okay.
But it's important to divide things, and this is why. In alchemy, you get the old, right? And when you want to get something new, you have to pull apart the old and say, this is masculine, and this is the king, and this is the queen, so they can die. So if we just go straight into something without dissecting it and saying, well, what is this and what is this? We get the same thing. We'll get the masculine view of it, right?
Does it have to be binary? Like you have to do, can't it be God both blended together, mother and father? It's just.
Yeah, but then people but then if you're conscious enough, go for it. I'm not telling you can't think that, but I'm just saying that sometimes when you name things, you understand them better, and then you can bring them together. Again, because first of all, right now, most of the feminine in our country is a father's daughter. We're patriarchal women. We are not goddess women. Very few women run with the wool.
What is the difference?
Well, a father's daughter is for the masculine in all things, like Athena said at the trial of Orestes. So you get people like, and they're very great. You get the politicians, you get the Hillary Clintons, you get all these people who try to be like men and want to succeed in a man's world. Okay, and they'll bring in the feminine. Okay, but I remember when somebody, Carolyn Kennedy, was thinking of running for the Senate, and somebody said, "Oh, why would she be any good? She's just a mother." And so we don't value the feminine that nurtures. We don't value the feminine that just says, "I'm taking care of my kids." We don't value the psychic. We put the psychic off to the side and go, "Well, they're kind of weird. You're going to do tarot readings." We don't have seers. We don't officially we don't have official seers, like they go, "Okay, we have to look into the future. Let's call our wise women." So I think that the future is going to be about wise women coming together, like the Council of Grandmothers for the Iroquois Nation when our nation was founded. And as my son tells me all the time, grandmothers should run the world. We need to have like a middle space, a liminal space where a birth can take place, right? Because
the men sure have done a crappy job.
Well, that's only because they repress the feminine. If we had been equal, you guys would be great. Okay? It's just that the repression of the feminine, like, listen, this is an example. So the imagination is part of the feminine consciousness. It is. So we're told that it's only for children. So stop being a child. And so what do we do with the imagination? We use it to sell crap nobody needs. That's what I mean about the media has colonized our imaginations, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, because that's not what the imagination's for. The imagination in its purest form, I think, is for us to go out and ask Mother Earth what she needs of us and to realign ourselves with Mother Earth's biosphere. And when we're hooked up, then we're the stewards of the earth that we're supposed to be. But we've disconnected. So we go, "Oh, good, let's use the imagination for capitalism. Let's use the imagination to have power over," rather than the imagination as the place of creation. That's what makes us like the gods. We create.
Well, you are a symbol expert. Why is it? There's no coincidence. Why is it? I've been telling people for 20, 30 years, here comes the United States Pluto return. And it came and went, and 3 days later, the invasion of Ukraine. Why is it that our Pluto return in our country is symbolized by what Russia is doing?
Well, I don't know if this is just me. I think it shows us that it's spread into the world. The original impetus of by the people, for the people, freedom. And now it's in the world, and Ukraine is saying, yes, we are fighting for the American ideals of freedom. You can't tell us who to be.
That's a good point. Good point.
Right? At home, we're seeing a whole group of people who have, since Reagan, have slowly and manipulatively gotten in all the places of power that the rest of us little liberal, meditator yoginis, have ignored. And now they're ready to seize power because the old doesn't want to give up its power.
The coins are going to trickle down into your pocket, Kathy.
Yeah.
And they're not
that's
going
why
to.
I think women we are the ones who have to stand up and protect the world. And we have to do it by trusting what we know. And you see, that's the worst thing that happened. Patriarchy made us distrust ourselves.
So I think so. And I think that what you're seeing in Russia is the last gasp of capitalism. Even though it's not capitalistic, it still supports it.
Yeah.
It's the last gasp of patriarchy.
Well, it is in some ways. As I said in the book of Revelation, when the women appears, they have a big battle and then heaven on earth happens. And not that we're going to get to Star Trek: The Next Generation right away, but we are heading towards a different future and we're going to have different stories. But to go back, it's so important. This is the imagination. I'm going to read you a few quotes. There was a guy named Ibn Arabi. He was a medieval Muslim mystic. And he said, the only reason, this is the other thing with dreams, the only reason God placed sleep in the animate world was so that everyone might witness the presence of imagination and know that there is another world similar to the sensory world. And the clearest access shared by all human beings to the nature of existence is our own imagination, especially dreams. When you go to a guru, it's like the Hierophant in the tarot deck. They give you the initiations. They lay out the path. That's what it was supposed to be. Like, here's a path, here's some rules, go do it. The feminine is wild. It just comes up. It's like being on a really good mushroom trip or ayahuasca, right? The goddess, the snake comes right at you and it's immediate. It's experience. It's the imagination. And we have shut it down. And Disney and everybody, as much as, they do.
So what do you do in these salons that you call salons?
Well, we dance and we talk about the imagination and we talk about where we've come from and we make up new stories. And then we learn how to use our abilities. Like, here's another thing. The Mundus Imaginalis, there was a guy named Henry Corbin who was a scholar. He was French, of Islamic stuff. And he said, we access the imagination through the power and perception of the heart. It's the heart power that fuels the creative imagination. That's all these classes about. Listen to your heart, listen to the power of your heart. We know the heart has more connections than the brain. So we're coming to this place where naturally on all levels, the divine feminine is back, right? But we have to bring it into society so that it's equal. To me, where it was equal was the Native Americans when they stopped the Keystone Pipeline, because it was the grandmothers who said, this is bad, this is that. There was a prophecy, so feminine, once again, a prophecy. There was a prophecy about a black snake. We have to stop this. And people went, and the men went and protected them, and the women went and stopped it. That's the kind of action, okay? We don't all have to be warriors. Some of us need to be healers and prayers and seers and all different things, right?
Well, why is it that I have, in my career, I have so many tons of clients that just want to get out of what they're doing. They're ripe. It's happening to them often in their 60s. They're bursting forth. You could see this happening in the 2010s. It was starting to, but now they're just coming out just like buds on a flower, and everybody's becoming meta teachers. They're just becoming teachers of the teachers. It's happening like crazy.
Yeah.
It's never happened before. Nothing like this.
I know. And I don't know about this cosmic rays coming in. I know we're getting extra solar flares, and other people have talked that we're going through the Kuiper belt or something. And
right.
You know what I mean? So all we know is that we are in a time of death and rebirth. So what do you do in that bardo liminal space? You have to ground and center. You have to balance yourself. You have to access your own wisdom, right?
Well, that's not something that's American. Nothing about America is grounding. It's the opposite.
Well, that's because we don't feel comfortable in America yet. The Native Americans said, until many generations of your bones lie in the earth, you will not feel like this is your land. And I think we're all orphans. We've all come from other places,
wow.
Right?
How it,
When
how
you're
it-
an orphan, the only
Yeah.
home is in yourself.
that really is intriguing. That really makes all this fit together. Yeah, very good. John, did you have a question? Did you have a statement?
No?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Kathy.
So anyway, let's talk a little astrology. Venus connected with Neptune yesterday and with Jupiter after the eclipse, right?
4 planets in Pisces right now.
Yeah.
Right after the sunrise, they're all visible in a line. 4 planets in Pisces, which is an extremely powerful spiritual symbol.
Right. As well as a spiritual symbol in all ways, like the fanatical right wing thinking it's the end times, and Putin and his buddies saying this is a holy war, this is good against evil, right? So we forgot the fanaticism part when we talked about the big spiritual awakening.
Yeah, he can speak, right? Let him speak about that.
I think white American Christians are feeling that too. Not all, of course. I love Jesus. I was married to an Episcopal priest, so it's not that I don't like him, but that mindset of things are changing, so it must be the end, and we have to be saved. And this is the crazy making that's going on with people who are so afraid that they have to have more rigid rules, and they're very afraid of people who go, guess what? I'm free. I can talk to God myself.
So how do you define what is looking like a civil war in this country?
Well,
What are the two sides?
well, you know what I would love to see? I would love to see us just like, the image that came to mind was the pictures of the girls in the 70s putting flowers in the guns again.
Yeah, barrels of the gun, yeah.
An old grandma. So I'm going to do that, right? I'm going to go up to these young guys with their guns and say, honey, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
We need you to run for office. It would be great.
No, but I mean, part of it is we can fight them. We can, be angry at them, but they're deluded. And so, and they all drank, whatever the cocktail was.
Hold on
Play out.
one.
Okay. So anyway, I don't know. So dreams are the best way to learn how to talk to your unconscious. Okay, because they're both.
I use some help there. My dreams driving me crazy.
But the thing is, once you learn, it's language. It's a language that we've forgotten, right? And unfortunately, the unconscious is dangerous. It's like being in the ocean, right? There's big space. It's like being in outer space or the ocean. There's big spaces. There's monsters down there. There's beauty down there. So most people don't know how to navigate the unconscious or the dream world. So that's why you get somebody like me to help. Or you really practice, okay? Part of it is if you don't have a strong sense of yourself and you go into the unconscious, you could get gobbled up, okay? You can get inflated.
How do you practice it with dreams?
Say it again.
How do you practice with dreams?
Well, you begin to try to interpret them, to live it. You begin by saying, why did this dream come to me? What does this mean? But most people take it as, oh, this happened, and they take it, it's very flat. Symbols are dense and they're deep. So you have to play around with it. Do you know? Just
like an archetype.
Well, archetypes are the cosmic laws that get filled out by the stories and the symbols. Mm. So yeah, but a lot of it is, if you've worked on your individual psychological processes, you begin to discover the way you see the world. You begin to see the story. Your dreams are a story of what you're experiencing from your soul's point of view. And you're part of the story. You in the dream are, you could say, would be the ego, the part that's talking to you. That's my ego, right? all the rest is the rest of the story. Now that story might be very personal and have to do with issues you face that day, or you might be in a bigger story. You might go to another dimension or go to another place, or you might see the future. It all depends on what your gifts are. Astrologically, people with water signs are very psychic, right?
Yeah.
I say to people who are Pisces, you're an empath. If you watch Captain Picard on the Star Trek ship Enterprise, he would say, number one, what do you think? Counselor Troy, what do you feel? He took both. And he was a balanced ego. There's the third. It doesn't have to be. I just read an interesting thing in that book on the gene code. It said that 1 and 3 are the numbers. 2 is a fake number. It's only a bridge. So we really don't live in a binary world. We live in a triplicity. It goes from 1 to 3, because when there's 2 of you, there's also the third thing, the relationship.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. In a lot of ways, astrologically, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. You know what I mean? So people can either think about it, this energy in terms of a goddess, which makes us be grateful for it and to honor it. I always think if we think in terms of divinity, we honor and we respect it a little more, right? And we listen to it. But basically, it's a part of ourselves that connects with creation. The creative imagination, okay, is how we create. That's why it used to drive me crazy when The Secret came out, because everybody rushed to be a patriarch. I am going to go into the quantum field and manifest $1 million and
manipulate what I want.
A house in Hawaii and a Tesla.
Manipulate what I want. It doesn't work that way.
Right. As the 12th house Taurus, I will tell you that if we're here for spirit, Spirit says, guess what? All these desires you have, are they really what you want? Or are they what you think you want? And when you strip them away and you get down to who you are, then you know what's really important to you. And it's so fascinating because it's not how many things you can buy or what kind of car you have.
It's always about going back to God.
It's going to go back to God, and it's being loved. It's having people.
Being love, family, yes.
And
Do you want your those documents you gave me to bring those up now?
well, you could. There were a few quotes about the imagination, because I think.
Let me see here. Here they are. Okay. Now, okay. Is
So
that
it says, I don't know what bounds may be placed on the power of the imagination. It can heal the body, reveal the secrets of divine truth, transform the personality, incarnate God, and open up worlds of infinite diversity and potential. This is the creative imagination. And this is what we've been cut off from.
okay?
Okay, this is William Irwin Thompson. The imagination is therefore not a source of deception and delusion, although it can be, we see it, but a capacity to sense what you do not know, to intuit what you cannot understand, to be more than you can know.
And now Einstein.
Imagination is more important than knowledge. Jean Houston, she's a transpersonal psychologist. She, I guess, met him when she was little, and they were on a school trip, and a little boy said, Mr. Einstein, how did you get so smart? And Einstein said, I read fairy tales. And the boy said, well, how can I be smarter than you? And he said, read more fairy tales. This is the place of creation, and we've been cut off from it because and then when they cut us off, our society, then they focused our attention on make money. And you were saying, why do so many people, are they disappointed in their life? Because they've been told that what they should believe and what they should concentrate on rather than what their heart wants. And that's where Eris comes into this with Pluto. Pluto says, I'm breaking up the culture. Eris says, well, become who you want to be. Don't become who they want you to be.
Well, they're really similar and they really back each other up. And I know something that coursed through me in the past year. I just started telling clients, they will call and say, Rick, I've been thinking about, just go do it. Rick, I've been thinking about, just go do it. I was really thinking big here. Well, think a lot bigger. There's just been this tsunami of creative energy busting out of us, and almost everybody I'm talking to is saying, "Yeah, that's really happening." And a lot of people, a lot of clients, all you need to do is give them a little nudge because they're already ready. They're ready to go. But the collective is on fire. And that makes me really wonder about what's really going to go down in Eastern Europe now. With the collective on fire, this is really central to
Well, I think people
whole story.
realize that the world is in our hands. And if we don't do something with it,
Yeah.
you know, like Elon Musk, that guy, and Bozo, the Bozo guy, you know, with all their money, instead of buying the Amazon and giving it to the world, right? They do these stupid things because they don't have the deeper consciousness of what's going on in the moment. And all the people calling you, Rick, are the ones who have been doing their work. And the goddess and God, whoever you want to talk to, the goddess is our beingness. The God is our doing. Right. So the goddess is calling and they're ready to do it. Right.
Well, I'm seeing it everywhere. And I'm seeing a real dichotomy. The ones who are ready and really skyrocketing, and the ones who are just clueless and hanging on and wondering what to do. And I don't have any answers for them. I mean, the answers, they had answers 20 years ago and they ignored them. But now there's really two different schools of thought. And it really doesn't have to come to tete-a-tete. It doesn't have to come to a civil war. It really doesn't.
Well, you know, I remember reading about early Christianity, and the image that I am left with, I don't know if these are the words, is that all the early Christians went out and they were like the leaven in the bread. Okay. And part of it is, I hate to get new agey, we have to, the more we work on ourselves and do what we need to do in the moment where we live, the light goes out. And then that's what changes the world. There's going to be pockets of darkness. We can't stop other people's karma. If people have karma they have to live out, they're going to live it out and they're going to be miserable or not. Right? Death isn't the bad thing. Death is not the scary thing. Okay? Living inauthentically is way scarier than death.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to get your contact page up if people do want to get in touch with you. Let's see, here it is. Here it is.
Except it's a different website.
I fixed that.
Okay.
Right.
So I guess we're done, unless people want to ask me questions. But while you're looking for it, there's this beautiful prayer. And it's called The Charge to the Goddess of Wisdom. And if you don't mind, I would love to read it as a blessing.
Yes, go ahead, dear. On the screen is the contact information to get hold of Kathy.
Okay.
That's
So
her new website.
This is called The Charge of the Goddess of Wisdom. Whenever you seek wisdom, come together in love and trust and learn of me, who am living wisdom. You who search the mysteries of the earth, the secrets of air and darkness, the mysteries of blood and fire, the silence of the uttermost stars, come unto me, and I will whisper to you in the depths of midnight. Approach me in the sanctity of silence, and as a sign that you are free from fear, you shall bear your soul unto me, for fear has no place in my nurturing mysteries, and that which you seek of me will destroy you if you fear it. For I am the dolmen arc beyond which stretch the mysteries of infinity. I am the silence before birth and after death. I am the clouded mirror in which you scry your own soul. I am mist in the twilight, the vast and starry sky of midnight, shadows on the moon. All things come to me in the end, and yet I am the beginning of all. I meet you at the crossroads. I lead you through the darkness. My hand is the hand you will grasp in the passage between worlds. To the true seeker, I bring knowledge beyond mortal comprehension. Of you shall I demand the uttermost truth of all that you are. And in return, I shall give you all that you may be, all that I am. For my wisdom is beyond the ages, and knowledge of my secrets is power over self, over fear, over death. I demand of you nothing which you cannot give, for I am the mother of mysteries. And inasmuch as you know me, so shall you learn to know yourself.
Sounds like the Tao.
Yeah,
Very similar.
yeah. The
Very
great promise is a mystery. It's us. We are our own mystery. If we would just solve ourselves, we would be happy.
Instead, we're watching TV or whatever it is we're doing. I don't know, playing sports. But there are signs we're coming together. It's really an unpredictable time. I think the election of Obama was a really huge turning point in the country, showed us what was possible. And then you've got these constant old-fashioned fights, and you've got a gridlocked Congress. I don't know. I really don't know why they even pay for the light bill at Congress, because they're just totally gridlocked. That's how it seems. I got a lawyer on the staff here. He won't tell me anything about the law. I keep asking him about it, and he won't answer me. So I don't know what's wrong with our legal system. The educational system is a mess.
Yeah, we need to redo everything. And that's
Yeah, but how can you redo everything? I mean, that's a big job.
I know, but
That's going to take more than 20 years.
it's going to take a while. But the thing is, we have the tools. We just have to have the will, which means to me that we have to be citizens, which means we need to vote. We need to get involved. We need to back people.
That sounds to me very promising for Pluto going into Aquarius.
Right. Well, isn't that what being citizens are?
Yes,
We have sat
definitely.
around and said, take care of us, Daddy. I
Yeah.
remember a friend of mine who was a Bernie voter, who now is like a Trump crazy person. But anyway, when it was like Bernie, she wanted Bernie to do all the work. He kept saying, no, I'm just like Moses.
Right.
I'm here to show you the promised land.
You do the work. Sandy, did you have a question, dear?
Like, that's why you have to put a woman in charge. We are multitaskers.
Yes.
You got my vote.
Yeah, do you notice how in America, we're one of the few countries that haven't had a woman in
Yeah.
power like that?
Yeah.
And there's a tremendous fear of the feminine in North America. And I think it's because it was the Protestant Christians. Because down south in South America, it was all the Catholics, and they all loved their mamas.
Yeah, why are we so
Their
afraid?
mothers.
John, I'll get to you in a moment. Why are we so afraid of the female?
Well, because I think we were
They're so powerful.
we're powerful, okay, but we're mysterious, and instead of men sort of saying, I'm not going to get seduced by this, it's so easy to seduce men if you're manipulative and you want something, right? And so there's a fear because they're not in touch with their own feminine. This is where Jung comes in. Men, you have a feminine soul. The more you connect to your own inner feminine, the stronger you'll be. But it's a scary thing. It's like little boys and their moms, right?
That makes sense. John, you had a question?
I just said, I was a lawyer, of course, and I'm retired now, but when I got out of law school, I was with a big law firm, made a good bit of money, and realized that the law is broken. I became more of a fighter. They called me the street lawyer. I'd represent people for free, but I can tell you that the legal system is owned by the corporations.
Yeah, that says it all, doesn't it?
Well, I didn't want to put that on the record, and all the lawyers in the country are going to come after me. But the other thing I wanted to say was, when I think of the Holy Spirit, when the disappearance of the universe talks about it, I don't think of the Holy Spirit as male, female.
Right.
perfect combination of,
Right.
and I grew up in a family where I had my mother and two older sisters. I have a lot of sense for what the feminine is. It's great. There's no way that that can't be a part of God. So just
Oh, you're exactly right.
Of course it is.
also,
Exactly right.
when I read
Everything teases of that.
when I read Jung and I compare him with Freud, there's so much fear, but with Jung, there's so much imagination and courage, and his intellect.
Openness, yeah.
When I was at the Jung Institute in Zurich, one of the little stories they told was that Jung said, I just wish people knew what a great lover I was. And I don't think it was meant in terms of the physical act, but that he loved women, okay?
Mhm.
And he loved everything. And that's part of the feminine, that in that saying, you are spirit, I see you. Or a tree, you're spirit. Like I was looking at a house, my boys decided that I needed a house. So they could come home and have a home here in Rhode Island. And I found a house I loved, which I didn't get, but I was hugging the tree and the woman came out and she said, I know what you're doing. I said, yeah, I'm talking to the tree and I'm telling it I want to live here,
Pull some strings for me.
right? So, when those things aren't weird, all of us are old enough. We know how we all go and hug trees and everybody went, oh, you're weird. No, we're not. Okay. We are like the original people. We know that life is full of spirit. That's all. Do you know?
That was an abrupt end. That was very good, actually. Okay, anybody? Come on, Claudia. Anybody else got questions for
Hey,
me?
Rick, Anita.
Hi, Anita. You're on. You're on with Anita's on with Kathy.
Okay. Hi, Anita.
Hi, and John. I grew up Catholic as well. So, and I went to Catholic school through the 6th grade, and then I became an atheist for a while because I couldn't figure it out. But what I do remember about the Catholic Church is, one, we never prayed to Jesus. In fact, it was sacrilegious.
Mother.
Jesus. We prayed to God and we prayed to Mary. And I remember for me, a really important line was Holy Mary, Mother of God. So, John, I just wanted to remind you of that line that does come out of Catholicism, probably buried deep. And, of course, that you get the whole Christianity destruction of the effeminate world. We get that, but that line always stuck with me. Holy Mary, Mother of God. And so I think back to your question, can God be both? God is both. God is.
Yeah, definitely. God is both. God, we're the ones who split it up. We anthropomorphize, we humanize our gods, okay, to connect with them, right? So of course, source is both, but there's different energies in that source. And so we name one yin and one yang. We name one being and one doing. We name one feminine and masculine. Maybe in the future, we will evolve so much that we'll only have trinities, maiden, mother, and crone, baby, his son, father and grandfather, who knows, but right now in the transition, I know it's not politically correct. I think it's important to name ourselves what the feminine is, because it's been disregarded for thousands of years, and to just slough over it. Okay.
That's not happening anymore.
No, but if it did.
Yeah, that's over with.
Yeah.
That's Eris squaring Pluto. Claudia, do you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question.
Or statement?
I really just had yes. I wanted to just tell Kathy, I'm so grateful that you are bringing up this imagination theme, because it is so important to me. And I find that ever since I was quite young, I couldn't understand why thinking was better, quote unquote. And I actually had this thought yesterday. The less I think, the happier I am, and the more fulfilled I am, and the stronger I feel in my center, in myself. But really, point being is the imagination. It's so lost now that we don't appreciate it, and we don't recognize its value, and it's sad. That's why I always look to children. I think children can teach us. I mean, I say this all the time. I love children, but watching them and really being around them can teach us so much. And they're just so unafraid of, it's natural for them.
Yeah.
And then why do we get big and think, oh, that's silly? Why would you? I literally drive down the road and I imagine all this stuff. And sometimes I find myself feeling silly, and then I think, why isn't anybody else doing this?
Well, we are doing it. You know why?
Yeah.
Because when you own the imagination, you are free. And for thousands of years, the church does not want you to connect to the God force except through them. Okay. The priests were supposed to just be guides to teach us. If you meditate, if you breathe, okay, if you open to your heart, if you open to the imagination, you will find the God force. They didn't want that. They wanted control. That's why they got rid of reincarnation. Okay. In the beginning, Catholics believed in reincarnation. Okay. In the Bible, Jesus was asking, you Elijah reborn, right? And then they wanted us to not have imagination because then we will listen to them. And Jesus said, you have to be like little children if you want to enter the kingdom of God, or the kingdom of heaven, right? So the whole thing is to come back to the imagination brings us joy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It
You have something?
It's magic.
Come on,
It's
Lord.
magic. Right. And they killed the fairies and the elves, and they tried to kill off the dragons and the mermaids.
Oh my God, just a bunch of killers everywhere. Liza's got something for us.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I just love the program, Kathy, this program tonight, and all of your talk about imagination and the feminine has just been so restorative to me. It's been great. But I was wondering if any of you saw the Mallory McMorrow speech. She's a state legislator in the state of Michigan, and how powerful that was and how strong she was. Are you familiar with that, Kathy?
I read about it. I didn't see her talk. I just read about her that she back.
It's on YouTube. Try to watch the whole thing. She was some Republican person was trolling her and calling her a groomer, which is code for, a derogatory term for people who support LGBTQ rights. And she responds to that on the floor of, I don't know if she's in a state rep or I think she's a state rep in their state house.
Yeah.
But she was so powerful and so strong. And she identified as a mother and a Christian, and said that she is people like, she said something like, people like me need to stand up and speak out and be with everybody who is a minority or LGBTQ or disadvantaged, because those are our values. That's my value as a Christian. My mother taught me to be of service to people, and that everybody should be treated equally. And she was so, it was just such an archetypal moment for so many facets of a strong feminine that you're talking about tonight. And I think you can see the whole thing on YouTube. And I think I just need to watch it every day.
What is it, about 10 minutes?
Not quite.
Hold on right there. We'll get her. We'll be right back. Okay, let me go get that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect to wake up yesterday to the news that the senator from the 22nd district had overnight accused me by name of grooming and sexualizing children in an email fundraising for herself. So I sat on it for a while wondering why me. And then I realized, because I am the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme, because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of, quote, parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. So then what? Then you dehumanize and marginalize me. You say that I'm one of them. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white. Well, here's a little bit of background about who I really am. Growing up, my family was very active in our church. I sang in the choir. My mom taught CCD. One day, our priest called a meeting with my mom and told her that she was not living up to the church's expectations and that she was disappointing. My mom asked why. Among other reasons, she was told it was because she was divorced and because the priest didn't see her at mass every Sunday. So where was my mom on Sundays? She was at the soup kitchen with me. My mom taught me at a very young age that Christianity and faith was about being part of a community, about recognizing our privilege and blessings and doing what we can to be of service to others, especially people who are marginalized, targeted, and who had less, often unfairly. I learned that service was far more important than performative nonsense like being seen in the same pew every Sunday or writing Christian in your Twitter bio and using that as a shield to target and marginalize already marginalized people. I also stand on the shoulders of people like Father Ted Hesburgh, the longtime president of the University of Notre Dame, who was active in the civil rights movement, who recognized his power and privilege as a white man, a faith leader, and the head of an influential and well-respected institution, and who saw Black people in this country being targeted and discriminated against and beaten, and reached out to lock arms with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. when he was alive, when it was unpopular and risky, and marching alongside them to say, "We've got you," to offer protection and service and allyship to try to right the wrongs and fix injustice in the world. So who am I? I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. Each and every single one of us decides what happens next and how we respond to history and the world around us. We are not responsible for the past. We also cannot change the past. We can't pretend that it didn't happen or deny people their very right to exist. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom. I want my daughter to know that she is loved, supported, and seen for whoever she becomes. I want her to be curious, empathetic, and kind. People who are different are not the reason that our roads are in bad shape after decades of disinvestment, or that healthcare costs are too high, or that teachers are leaving the profession. I want every child in this state to feel seen, heard, and supported, not marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. We cannot let hateful people tell you otherwise, to scapegoat and deflect from the fact that they are not doing anything to fix the real issues that impact people's lives. And I know that hate will only win if people like me stand by and let it happen. So I want to be very clear right now. Call me whatever you want. I hope you brought in a few dollars. I hope it made you sleep good last night. I know who I am. I know what faith and service means and what it calls for in this moment. We will not let hate win. Thank you, Mr. President.
Wow.
How about that?
Wow.
How about them apples?
That's Eris right there.
That's Eris. Tell
Defender
me
of the heart.
Eris isn't out there. That's the voice of Eris.
Yes.
Discord if we need it. But Eris gets too much of the negative of the discord and not enough of the why she's doing it. She's doing it because she's fed up. She's doing it because it's the right thing to do. And she doesn't want to hear anymore. She doesn't want to hear any more of the story. Now, this has become confused by the Trumpers, and they've turned it into draining the swamp. And they think that Trump is pro-Eris. He's the exact opposite. He's the dark side of Eris. He's the dark side. The light side is here too. And all I got to say is, you've been having sense today, Miss Kathy. Any more questions? Did you have something to say, Sandy?
Yeah, when you were talking, Kathy, I was thinking about, the feminine and the creative and the imagination. And, isn't that why like all the Gnostic gospels were left out of the Bible? And, when you think about imagination and creativity, they are inspired, which is the definition of spirit, when you are inspired, you're working in spirit. And I just think that, the creativity and imagination that you talk about brings us much closer to spirit.
Totally. I have to say, most of my spiritual practice has been doing my dream work. It's the God force comes to me in some dreams, and sometimes my shadow comes to me, and it's our ability to know ourselves. All spiritual practices say, first know thyself, and then you will know everything else. So you have to know who you are.
Yeah.
Well, that's really running true. That really is running true. And you can see it from the 50s to the 60s to the 70s you can just see the evolution of this whole thing happening. And it's here. And thank God for women like her that we just heard.
Yeah.
Any final words that you want to talk about specifically, Kathy? Go ahead.
Well, I would just say, go and play with your imagination. It's about finding joy. We're in May. It's my birthday month. I love it. You can dance around the maypole, do anything you want. But part of it is we have forgotten how to have joy, I think. I look out in the world. I know I'm old. I'm going to be 73 in a week. But part of it is, what do you do? I don't want to shop. I don't want to go to a restaurant. We don't even create spaces for joy. Okay. And those are the things that we get to do in the future. Maybe part of our job is to create places of joy and pleasure and community.
Joy play. I like that.
And play. And you know what, like this Musk guy, this Elon Musk guy, everybody should just get off Twitter. You don't need to be on Twitter. I never got on Twitter. Maybe I'm wrong, but
I don't use it.
We walk away from what is not worth it. It will crash.
Exactly. Well, all of you people tonight have seen a real good taste of what Astrology Unplugged is about. Yes, many nights is about astrological principles. But as I told you, I'm going to have a lot more guests coming on the next several months because we need different voices. We need different voices to reflect and show us what's going on and what's possible. And I don't know how we got so lucky to get such a genius as Kathy. But Kathy, I thank you so much for being on and really would like to have you on again pretty soon. If you would be willing.
Sure. We got to talk about the lunar eclipse on election day. That's the one I want to talk about.
Okay, well, you got 2 minutes. Go ahead.
No. As time goes on. Do you know what I mean? On election day, we're going to have a solar eclipse in Taurus and Scorpio.
10 or 11 Taurus, yeah.
Right?
She's looking in the ephemeris, everybody. See?
Of course I am.
Yeah, book of numbers, see?
Yes, 16 degrees Taurus. And Taurus Scorpio. And so right at the power gate, pretty much, right? 15 degrees is the power gates of all those things, right around Samhain, and so it could be the death of the patriarchy. We don't know, we really don't. Because
That
Pluto will
helps.
have gone back. By then, Pluto will have turned direct in October and will be going back over the America's Pluto again, right around then. So it should be interesting.
Here's your contacts with Kathy. If you need to get a hold of her, find her, chase her down up in Rhode Island. There's her email and her book. Kathy, thank you once again for coming. Thank you all YouTubers for joining us tonight. Your comments are welcome. And Kathy, please come visit us again. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much for asking me. I didn't realize I was going to talk that much. I had Gemini ascendant. So what to
Yeah,
do?
you got a lot to say. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.